Welcome to Not So Serious Magic. My name is Adam Bush, and this is my co-host Landon. How are you doing today, Landon?
You know, I'm a little cold in here. It's kind of cold.
It's a little chilly.
My beanie is on, but I'm still chilled.
I should probably put my Bears hat back on. Go
That
Bears.
seems, yeah, good idea, yep. So today, Adam, we're talking about Ultimate Masters and how you can play Boggles in Draft now.
You have to be so excited for that.
No, you're correct. We're talking about giving some impressions on Arena and a few more tips and tricks to improve your play. But before we do, if we could just take 1 second and have you follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, or iTunes at NotSoSRSMagic, that would just be great. Also, we still have our giveaway going on. We have that awesome Nim Pain Artist Judge promo. If you want to go and just like and share our Facebook page as well as our Twitter page, you will get an entry for one of each of those things. So feel free to go into that and do that.
Yeah, and that happens when we get, I think we said 75 page likes on Facebook.
Yep.
We'll pull the winner.
It'll be awesome. You'll enjoy that. It's a cool promo, really cool promo. So, Adam, talk to me a little bit about Ultimate Masters. I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of hubbub, a lot of talk. So what do you think? Talk to me about it.
This set, for lack of a better term, and just to appease somebody that called us on this a little bit, seems a little spicy.
A little spicy, yes.
It's awesome. There's a lot of new arts. The cards are amazing. Those full art pieces.
Yeah, no, they're nice.
Beautiful. There's a lot of value, and I thought I saw Saffron Olive tweet out last week that the value of a box is $500, but just before recording, I saw his article. It was $387 before the box topper. After he did his little EV article, with the box topper, he's guessing, because they don't really know how to price those full art box toppers, about $425.
That's something.
So if you can get a good deal on the box, you're potentially getting your value back. And
I will say, I think the value was lost when they put Tassiger with no bananas.
Oh yeah,
that lost at that point for me.
That 59 cents a pound. That was
not worth it.
Yeah, I think the set. This is what the Master sets should have been. They wasted iconic Masters. They wasted
25.
Masters 25.
Yep.
This is what it could have been, should have been the whole time. One of my questions is that price point.
Right.
That is ridiculous.
I know. I went to a local game store. And I was like, $50 for an Ultimate Masters draft, or I could pay my electric bill.
I mean, at $14 an individual pack. After people were upset that they upped it from 7 to 10 between the original Modern Masters to the subsequent ones.
Yeah,
that's just a lot. And what was it, $450 for the full box with the box topper?
Yeah,
I mean that's not targeting me.
I mean, you can get it for cheaper. That's the thing. A lot of game stores recognize the fact that no one's gonna buy this for $450. So they dropped it.
They were only doing that for pre-orders.
Exactly.
So you had to get in early.
Yeah. Now we don't know anymore what the deal's gonna be. So, yeah.
And they're clearly targeting the finance community. Well, for lack of a better term, the whales, the people that spend all the money on those free-to-play games. That's fine. I don't have any entitlement to every card. I can get these cards elsewhere.
Yep.
But I don't think that they can then advertise these sort of sets as lowering the barrier to entry to Modern.
No, not at all.
It's not going to happen. The prices will drop a little, but when you've got some of these new arts, those prices are going to be very different from other arts, and it's not going to bring down prices forever. They'll go back up. Goif always goes back up.
Exactly. And same with Noble. Noble will go back up if it even drops at all. I mean, it's such a risky game to play. It's them saying, "Oh yeah, well we're gonna lower the price to Modern." No, guys, we're gonna just pay a little extra. We're gonna lower the price to Modern for a little while. It's not a thing. It's false hope.
No, and sure they got all these new things. They got the full arts. They've got new arts. Well, every couple months we get brand new arts.
Yeah.
There's no fancy mechanics like dual-faced cards or flip cards.
Nope.
But even when they do that, they're still $3 to $4 a pack.
Yeah, exactly.
And we've had full arts, the full art lands from Unstable, the masterpiece sets, and they're not raising prices on all of those.
No.
It's not that expensive. The whole reason that this set is that expensive is because they recognize the value of the secondary market. They're protecting people that are collecting cards in the game stores, which is fine. But again, they can't pretend it's to get me into Modern.
You know, I've heard the argument, Adam, talking about this argument a little bit here. I've heard the argument that, and this is actually from a pro player friend of mine who is like, hey, you know, I really feel like all of these recent sets, like Ixalan and Khaled, all the standard sets. He's like, you know, these sets and Arena, they're kind of for the new standard player, maybe the casual Modern player, the EDH player who just wants to have their magic fix. They come to FNM, they have a fun FNM night, and they just kind of drop their cards there at the door and they go home, you know. And then you have these kind of sets like Ultimate Masters, Masters 25, Iconic Masters, even though they weren't so great, and you know, Modern, Legacy, Vintage. Those are the sets and formats for people who actually, you know, kind of give some about about like actually investing a lot, and not only just money but time. What do you think about that argument?
There's some merit to that, yeah. I mean, they've, at least so far, have explicitly said Arena is for beginners. Magic Online is for the more established player because they have all the other formats. So it's easy to see Ixalan, Dominaria, Guilds of Ravnica is the starting Arena point because that's what's on Arena.
Right.
And then Modern is, oh yeah, I don't want to stop using my cards.
Right.
And that makes some sense. I already have some of these cards, but again, if you're trying to get more people into these, it's hard to justify that at $14 a pack or like $45 for a draft. I'm not going to be able to afford to go draft this.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, no, I've had a lot of folks say, "Oh, just buy a box, you'll be so worth it for you," and I'm like, man, I can't front that kind of cash. Yeah. I just can't, you know.
And then the other thing is, sure, I'll buy a box because I'll potentially per Saffron Olive get $425.
Right.
Am I gonna want? That's only if I sell those cards. If I get a Goyf, am I gonna want to sell? If I got the ultimate box type of Goyf, I would definitely sell that. I have pulled one Goyf in my life, and it was when I went to Level Up Games, and Chad over there, he's like, "Hey, who wants to play the Goyf game?" I'm like, all right, I'll buy a pack. I'll do it. Poop! Oh, Goyf! And they gave me a ton of cash right on the spot.
I bet they did.
Because they were out of them.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think that you know. A lot of folks kind of talk to me, and I play a lot of Modern. I'm going to kind of go on a tangent here. I play a lot of Modern, and a lot of folks say, well, I want to play Modern because it's so much more stable than Standard. And that argument kind of frustrates me, and I get what they're saying. I get that they mean, like, oh, my cards aren't going to rotate. And that's one thing, but that's more like static. It's not stability. Because stability means, like, we have the same meta. And I don't know if you noticed, but, like, we've gone from, like, Death Shadow being number one to now it's, like, Dredge and Humans are number one and Spirits are a close third. Like, it's always flipping. I mean, there was a time when it was, what, like...
Splinter Twin.
Yeah, right? Like, I mean, it's just always... And, I mean, that was a banning. Thanks, Wizards. No. Right? But no, but, like, it's always kind of rotating.
The Eldrazi Winter.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
And there's stability in your cards are always... generally always available to you.
Right.
But yeah, the meta is constantly shifting up and down, and that's where Modern is fun to watch.
Right.
On my perspective, is
exactly
anything can win the day.
Yep. It's a good time. It really is. Anything else to say about Ultimate Masters? I think I would like to mention that that there's just so much good stuff. Like I was in spoiler season, I was like, all right, well. Here we go. Here's the day. This is gonna be a day when we get like some stinky, like weird rare that's gonna be bad. Like, oh man, you know. But it was like every day it was like, whoa, back to basics. What? Like, noble hierarchy, rare. What's going on, guys? Like,
and some changes for Pauper with the foil and gush.
Oh man, gush banning approaching. Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting idea.
And it was fun because they changed the rarity on a bunch of cards because the set was packed with such powerful cards all over the place.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool to watch all the spoilers. And you know, the most notable thing for me, I used to play Boggles, and they reprinted Boggle and they printed Heroic in the same set. So there's gonna be some very sneaky people playing Boggle Heroic in Limited, and they're going to own some people's faces.
My final thought is I think they could have kept the $10 price point, do those box toppers as masterpieces, because everybody's going to be excited for that. Then.
Oh, definitely.
Not just the people that are buying these boxes and then selling them on eBay for $600. Mm-hmm. It'll sell out in no time.
Yep.
You'll get tons of player goodwill. People will have stories like, oh, I pulled the Goyf, I pulled the Snapcaster, or I pulled Back to Basics.
Right.
And then that's just going to spread the word on social media. People are going to be posting that all over Reddit, all over Twitter.
Yep.
And you're spreading your brand. You're spreading your goodwill.
Exactly.
I think you could have done that. And people are excited for this set. I'm excited for this set. I will probably buy a couple packs after Christmas when money is free again.
Back in my account.
Yeah. And but I'm not going to buy many at $14.
No, I won't either. Honestly, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't know how.
I could buy at 4 or 5 packs of a standard set.
Exactly, the same price. And now over to Adam Bush with our thoughts on Arena.
Yeah, I've been playing this quite a bit. I built a nice little red-white aggro deck, which has been a lot of fun based on some of the Pro Tour stuff. I enjoy Arena. It's fun. It's easy to play. It's not, because the UI is better than MTGO, it's less intimidating. And I was surprised I liked the one and done.
You know, I think that the programmers who made MTGO were like, yep, I'm sure that only programmers will play this game. But yeah, no, I play Merfolk, or Merfolks, if you want to be proper there with a plural. But yeah, it's a really good time. I really enjoy it. It's kind of a, not to be rude to those who do play, but it's kind of a brain dead activity for me. I can sit down, have a very relaxed experience. And it's nice. It's very nice.
I turn on like a YouTube video of something and
same here.
Play some Arena, click on my things every once in a while. Yep. And they've responded to a lot of feedback. Like early on, you could not play through those animations. Like when the dinosaur jumps out of the thing, you had to wait for it to finish.
Which is a problem when you can't hit a resolve the stack button.
My God, that was so annoying. And they responded to some of that stuff, and I like that they're constantly adding features like the recent direct challenge, even though they did that in the most painful way possible. Yeah. Where you both have to enter the thing, and it's case sensitive.
It's pretty...
but they're working on it. They're adding things to it, so that's good. What I find myself doing is hoarding all my wild cards, because I never... I mean, do you play RPG video games?
I do, yep.
Do you ever use your healing potions?
Not often, no.
Or any of your extra, this gives you a dexterity boost.
No, I never do, yeah.
Because you're like, oh, there could be something worse coming. There could be something worse coming. Yeah. So it's just like that feeling in a video game where I don't want to use my stash, my hoard of supplies, because something better could come along.
Like a green dragon, you just kind of stash it, hoard it.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it a lot, yeah.
And because I can't trade or sell or do anything with the cards I already have, I don't want to purchase them with the wild cards, because like, all right, I didn't actually want this insult to injury. I wanted something else.
Right. And there's always going to be stuff wrong with Arena, and because we can always pick out things, but this is a big one, I think. I mean, like if there was an option to be able to trade with other players, there would be such a new aspect here. Yeah, like that's something that would draw me in as somebody who's like kind of on the fence about it. I would definitely be like, whoa, like trading.
And another big issue is, I don't own any of it. These are all licenses. Wizards can just wipe it out at any time, so I don't want to put any money into something I don't own. And we don't know how they're going to handle rotations yet. Yeah. This last one, they just did a complete wipe because they're still in beta. We don't know what the future is going to hold, because they might not even know yet. So why put money into buying packs for a random chance at a card, because I can't even control what card I'm going to get, to then have it wiped out?
Definitely, it's a double-edged sword when they bring that whole aspect of randomizing everything into it, because it's like, well, then it's not pay to play, right? I mean, like it's not this idea. It's
not pay to win.
There you go, exactly. It's not this idea of like, I'm going to get this fantastic card by paying $1 million. However, that brings it down to the level of like, well, I guess I have to buy 1,000,000,000,000 trillion packs to find the one card that I need, because it's, you know what I mean?
Or to get the random wild card.
Exactly, that you need. So it's just kind of this frustrating thing that happens. And, for me as a person who plays Modern, who plays a little Legacy, plays, a little more expensive formats, I prefer to say, you know what? I don't buy packs anymore, because it's just too expensive. I pay for the cards I need, and I build the decks I need, and then I'm good to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And another small quality of life issue is I hate the timer. I hate that timer so
it is really
much.
Bad.
It's like you don't get the time to think through your plays. Yeah. And then you have to respond to every single trigger. Like, say you're playing an opponent that's got a little life gain a deck and has like 3 Johnny Pride mates out there. Have to hit resolve in every single one of those triggers. And that timer pops up.
Exactly.
And that's just a little thing where they could have a always yield to this.
Yeah, or resolve stack.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be fine too. I mean, the stack doesn't resolve; it's its own. Sorry, I just judged myself. I got triggered.
Oh snap!
No, but yeah, it definitely. I hear you on that one. My comments here. This is kind of a weird one for me, but so right now I only have a Mac and an Android, and I don't have a PC. So for me, like, I get that Mac. I think they've commented. Have they commented on this? That there will be.
I think they probably have, and I think the intent for this eventually is to have it as an app for phones, for mobile gaming.
Because definitely that's something that I think would appeal to a lot of people. I mean, having a PC and playing on PC is fun and good, but think of the market they could achieve if they had this huge amount of that sort of stuff. The other thing I kind of think is interesting is the ranking and the way they do it. I have gone from like almost to like the diamond. Is it like diamond or
I don't understand.
Almost the diamondish one, and then like down to the lowest rank, and then like back up like numerous times because I'm not great at Magic the Gathering. So this whole like weird ranking happens. I don't know how to fix it. I don't know if it's wrong, but it just seems weird to me, you know?
Yeah, there's some. I know what little I viewed of the forum. There are some questions about the ranking systems, and there's something. If you, as a higher ranked person, lose to a lower ranked person, you drop a lot more. But I don't think you rise quite as much if it's swapped.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. Yeah.
And it ties into that. Like, I have these decks, but they're not as finely tuned as they could be because, again, I don't want to spend my wild cards, and I also don't want to like change too much because it's working as it is. So if I change something, then I lose the thing, lose my rank, and it all ties in together a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned that you haven't been very good at Magic.
Yeah.
I got a few stories on how I'm not that good at Magic.
Oh.
I've been playing a bit of Commander recently.
Like you do.
Like I do. Yeah. I do what I do when I do what I do. I was playing my Niv Mizzet EDH deck, and I had a guy playing Lathless and two other players with some of the Commander Anthology precons. Lathless was just kicking my butt.
Yeah, she's pretty big.
Yeah, yep. There was a lot going on, and I figured out a play to take out Lathless, and it was I had Niv out, and I'd been drawing a bunch of cards from people playing instants at various times. My turn comes around. I cast Insult. Damage can't prevent it, and if a source I control would deal damage, do double damage. Well, Niv does damage every time I draw a card. I then cast Windfall. I had like 10 cards in hand.
Seems good.
It was good. Lathless was only at like 6.
Yep.
So Lathless, you're dead to the face.
Good.
Now I have like 16 damage left.
Sure.
I was super excited. This was the thing I'd been working on all game.
Right.
I went to the face of the other two opponents, which didn't kill either of them.
Okay.
And I wasn't really paying attention because I was so excited. I should have killed their creatures on board. I could have wiped one player's board and severely hurt the other. Just got too excited.
Yeah, once you get that damage in your hands, man.
Yeah, it's just it's like, oh, this is fun. This is what my deck was built to do. Whoops, died on the crackback.
That is why, dude, that's actually a good example of how like players, like competitive modern players, or even any competitive format players, lose games because they get that like rush of like, this is what my deck was made to do.
Yeah,
and then they're like, and then they could die on the crackback. Like,
yeah, that was that Pro Tour, like one of the Amonkhet Pro Tour. The guy, he drew the card he needed to win and went to attack phase. Well, he couldn't attack because he had too many cards in hands for what's the red god to attack? Hazaret.
Yep.
And they declared, well, you missed your triggers and stuff.
Sucks to suck, man.
Crap. And he lost.
Yeah.
It was terrible, and everybody understood what he meant, but he wasn't clear on those rules.
That sucks.
Another mistake that I luckily fixed is I was playing my Blink deck, and I had Sun Titan out, which whenever he enters or attacks, you return something CMC 3 or less from your graveyard. Well, I went with him and a couple little enter the battlefield value creatures like Elvish Visionary that draws a card. I attack because I wanted that to die to bring it back. Well, my opponent had Kalidas out.
Uh-oh.
Which
Trader of Get.
Yeah, whenever a non-token creature an opponent controls would die, exile it.
Ruh-roh.
And one of the other guys, he just starts laughing when I see it. I'm like, oh, crap. And before I let blockers be declared, but before damage, I blinked Kalidas. So my couple things died, but some of the things I wanted to die didn't. So I didn't get my value, but it's like, whoo.
I love how in Commander everyone just laughs. Like I get some, like in Modern or in Standard or whatever, you don't see people just like laughing at the table, but in Commander everyone's just like,
you suck, you missed it. Yes. Yeah. So it was fun. Like I managed to not make my mistake worse, but I didn't get all the value I want. And then the player that laughed at me cast the Great Aurora, and we kind of reset the whole game.
that is the thing that happens.
For another 2 hours.
Yeah. Good old Commander. Well, my misplay, I have a couple of them. My first one was actually pretty recently. I played Modern at a local game store near me. And I was playing against the up-and-coming Thing Phoenix deck, where it has Thing in the Ices, a lot of fast spells to flip Thing in the Ice, makes it a 7/8, bounce all your things, and the Phoenix comes back from grave. What's it called? Flamewake Phoenix?
Yeah, Arcwing Phoenix.
Arcwing Phoenix. Yeah, Arclight Phoenix. Yeah. So it comes back, they cast a lot of little spells, and it comes back from the grave, and they swing in for like 1 million damage on turn 3, and it's pretty degenerative.
I'm going to build that deck.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I tried to run Thing in the Ice at a GP, and I almost made day 2.
Yeah, it is. Thing in the Ice is coming back. It's always been good, but it's kind of finding its spot again. So I'm playing Hollow One, and in Hollow One, if you're not familiar, the strategy is you're trying to discard 3 cards. Because once you discarded 3 cards, you can play a Hollow One for free. Hollow One is a 5-mana 4/4, and then it says whenever it costs 2 less to cast for every card you've discarded or cycled this turn. So if you manage to discard 3 cards, it costs 6 less to cast, and casting cost is 5, so you get it for free. So that's kind of the goal, is to kind of discard a lot of cards and draw a lot of cards and play Hollow Ones and play Gurmag Anglers that are these big 5/5 zombie fishes. And it's kind of this fun thing, right? But for me, so I lost game 1 to this guy because he killed me on turn. It was hilarious. Game 1, I had 3 Hollow Ones on turn 2.
Oh, nice!
And I was like, this is it, man. There's no way. Then he killed me the next turn because he flipped Thing in the Ice, bounced all my Hollow Ones back to my hand, and swung in for 1 million damage with 3 Phoenixes and a all this different stuff. It was bad. So in game 2, I was sideboarding, and I was like, what do I take out against him? So I brought in the usual. I brought in Path to Exile, Fatal Push, which is really good against Thing in the Ice because it kills it, right on the spot. And there was some other good stuff I brought in, but I kept in Burning Inquiry. Burning Inquiry is a sorcery that costs 1 red, and it says each player draws 3 cards and then discards 3 cards at random.
Oh, those Phoenixes.
So yeah, so that was my problem, and I was like, I didn't catch that the fact this really enables the Phoenixes.
Oh gosh.
And he had a lot. I think he had a couple of jumpstart things too, and it was bad.
It just doesn't hurt his deck at all, does it?
Exactly. It only helps him out. So that was kind of my no play there. And then in Commander, I played Baral, Chief of Compliance, which is the makes instant sorceries cheaper Commander. So it's a lot of it's all counter spells. I think I run like 25 to 30 counter spells.
Ooh, you should play Adam Smith.
It's a really good time.
Sounds like you would love that deck.
Yeah, no, it's counter spells. It's a really good time. Shout out to Commander Smith. It was a really good time. But the problem I'm running into a lot is that I counter too much stuff, and I have to really realize, like in the game I played against, I think it was like what's the Jund command, like Karthus, the dragon commander.
Oh, I don't know.
I was like countering dumb things. I was countering like his soul ring because it felt nice. I was countering, I was countering all these things that I really didn't need to counter, that weren't essential to his master plan. It wasn't inhibiting me from winning the game, which is kind of what I have to say. Like, look, man, if it's not inhibiting me from winning the game or letting you win the game, I have to just let it go.
Yeah, and you got to count on the other players to take care of some things too.
Exactly. So that's kind of where I was at with that. But those are kind of our misplays for the time being. I've spent more time judging than playing Magic well recently, I have to say. I actually went and recently just judged Soy City Games Regionals in Minneapolis here. And so I'm going to give a couple of calls that I had, a couple of interesting judge calls that I had. And if I'm giving a scenario, any player that has the name A, so like Anita or Adam or Andrew,
Adam.
Yeah, right. That's the active player, and any N names like Nora, Nancy, Ned, those are all the non-active player. Just so we're all tracking here. So I actually had a player call me over. Nancy, the non-active player, controlled a Ghost Quarter. Ghost Quarter is the land that you can sack it to destroy a target land, and then its controller may search his or her library for a basic land, put it into play, and then shuffle their library. So it's kind of like a Path to Exile, but not. Like you can search out a land, basically. So Nancy had a Ghost Quarter, and at the end of Andre's turn, end of the active player's turn, Nancy activated the Ghost Quarter, targeting Andre's forest. So Andre went and moved his forest to grave because it's destroyed, and Nancy did not remind him of the second portion of the ability that allowed him to search for a basic. Andre does not search, therefore, and goes to continue playing the game and go to his turn or Nancy's turn actually. And while still in the end step, an outsider stops the game and calls me over. So just a little side note, him stopping the game is perfectly okay. This is a competitive level event. He's definitely allowed to stop the game. So I came over, I spoke to the players, I kind of took a little investigation to figure out what was going on. I spoke to another one of my judge friends, and we kind of decided that Nancy, the one who had the ghost quarter, received a tournament error communication policy violation. Basically, you can't assume that your opponent did not take a shortcut.
Yeah, we talked about this a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, you have to always say, like, if you path to exile their creature, you have to say, hey, you are allowed to search for a basic.
Yeah.
And that was just updated in the Magic Tournament rules. So that is a thing. So in the situation there, we applied the fix by just letting Andre search for basic land. He was good to go.
Yeah, and it's a real easy thing to avoid. Just confirm with your opponent, are you searching?
Exactly. Yeah, it was, and they were very nice about it. They were very cool, and they understood. So, and it's only a warning in that situation, so it was pretty easy. The next one I had was Eidolon of the Great Revel, and its triggers. So Nathan, the non-active player, controls Eidolon of the Great Revel. Eidolon of the Great Revel says, whenever a player casts a spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, Eidolon of the Great Revel deals 2 damage to that player. And that's either player. Either player casts a spell with 3 or less, they get dealt 2 damage. So Nathan controls the Eidolon, and Annie casts 2 spells with CMC 2. Nathan does not remind Annie to take damage, and Annie does not take damage. A turn passes, and a judge is called, I'm called, by Nathan, saying, hey, I forgot my trigger a turn ago, right? So, obviously, it's a mistrigger, right? That is the problem. It's a mistrigger because Eidolon says, whenever you, which is a triggered ability. So then we have to figure out at this point, as a judge, if it's what's called a detrimental trigger, and what the fix will be. So, any trigger in Magic the Gathering is either detrimental or beneficial. Detrimental means that it is a bad trigger. It's something you play, like, basically the way you look at triggers is you say, is this card played in spite of its trigger or because of its trigger, right? So things like, and it depends on situations sometimes, but things like when this thing becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. That's a detrimental trigger because it's a bad thing. We don't want to sacrifice creatures. Beneficial ones are good triggers. So we have to decide, hey, is this a detrimental trigger and how we're going to fix it? Because if it's detrimental, some more stuff has to happen. So I'm looking at the IPG, which is the Infraction Procedure Guide, looking to see what's going on, and basically, what has to happen is, since this problem was missed a turn ago, we instruct the players to keep playing. We have to make sure it's not detrimental, because if it is detrimental, then that player receives a warning. So I have to look at it and see. Basically, Eidolon of the Great Revel is not detrimental when it's affecting the other player, when it's affecting not Nathan, right? If it's affecting himself, like if he casts a spell that's worth CMC 3 or less and he controls the Eidolon, then it's detrimental because it's a bad thing. Right? He needs to remember that because it's important he takes damage. But if it's his opponent taking damage, then it's not detrimental. It's beneficial. It's a good thing, right? So it's not at that time. It's also never the opponent's job to remind the other player of their triggers. It's not a thing. And the failure to maintain game state is also, it's a penalty, but that does not apply to triggers. It applies to game rules violations. So anyways, jargon aside, what had to happen was we told Nathan, hey man, be more careful in the future. Make sure you remember your triggers. And we said play on players.
All right, so let's look at a couple of variables on this. Let's say Annie knows the trigger, puts it down, and says any responses. He says, no, you're fine. So she's basically aware of this trigger and ignoring it. She doesn't have to take the damage or nothing happens to her for purposely.
Well, it depends. You have to. So as a judge, we have to conduct an investigation. If we can conduct an investigation and we see that a player is clearly do something they know is illegal and they're trying to gain an advantage from it, that's cheating.
Well, I'm trying to set up the situation where she knows the trigger. She's giving Nathan the chance to remember his own trigger.
And that's great. That's her, and she's being very kind in that way if she's allowing him to do that. But in no way is she required to say, hey man, there's a trigger you got to remember.
You're supposed to zap me right now.
That's not required. She's more than welcome to say that if she'd like, but she does not need to. And it's also not a judge's job to say, "Hey, you need a trigger." No, that's not my job. My job is not to walk in and say, "Hey, that's a problem. Do it. Fix it now." My job is to say, "Hey, no, I think that there was illegal. It's not something that happened. I need to fix that." You know what I mean?
Now let's say it's Nathan casts some spells and gives her the chance to remind of the trigger, but she doesn't because it's not her card, and he doesn't take the damage. How do you change that? He's avoiding his own trigger.
So then in that situation, if he is knowingly avoiding his trigger, that's cheating.
Okay.
You can't knowingly avoid your own trigger, especially if it's dealing damage to you. And of course, an investigation has to be conducted at that point.
Of course.
But if we know for a fact that Nathan is saying, "Yep, I have a trigger here that's dealing damage to me, and I'm not gonna take that damage," we can say probably it's a game rules violation first.
Okay.
And if it's continually happening, then we investigate for cheating, right? Like I say, it's a big. We don't just issue cheating. You know what I mean? Like, and maybe I misspoke there. We don't just issue it. We have to make sure there's a huge investigation. Usually, we're issuing game rules violations before the cheating's happening. So it kind of depends.
And those are then tracked, and then if it comes up later, you can go back and say,
and we
hey, we caught
further.
him in round 3 doing this same thing.
Yep.
Now we have a bit more evidence.
Exactly. Yeah, but I assume when you said he is, that kind of meant he had malice intent. But if there's no malice intent and we know he's just maybe, he's seeing it and missing it accidentally or whatever, we're going to issue a game rules violation, then we're going to move on and kind of upgrade it from there.
But if you can determine he has knowing intent, is he done?
Well,
even on one time, you're pretty sure he has the malicious intent here.
It's tough because that's a head judge question. That's why head judges get brought into a lot of these calls. I would say if we know that he is, because clearly if he has malice intent, he's doing something he knows is wrong.
Well, we can change the variable. He's calling Annie on it, but not himself.
Right. Then that's kind of a situation where we know what he's doing is wrong, he knows that he's doing is wrong, and he's clearly trying to gain an advantage from that by not taking damage.
Right.
That's cheating. By definition, that's cheating.
Okay.
So it's kind of a gray area where we have to say, like, hey, head judge, like, come give me your advice here because this is really looking like it's a bad thing. You know what I mean?
Now let's pretend you've been promoted to head judge.
Oh, man. I don't know. I think in that situation, I would probably say, like, yeah, I mean, if there has been a pattern, if we can conduct investigation and say, like, yep, he is, very clearly doing this with the advantage in mind and knowing that he's wrong, then yeah, I mean, it's cheating.
All right.
And I feel bad saying that because I know a lot. It's kind of a hot topic right now.
It's a lot of ambiguity there, but
it is. Yeah, I would say that it is. Yeah. So my last one I have to talk about here, my last judge call I have to talk about is something that's really important for players to understand. It is about Thing in the Ice. So we already talked about Thing in the Ice earlier, and actually that was one of the two. That was the deck that actually won the regionals. Fun fact. They were playing against Amulet Titan. Yeah, it was a fantastic. They played 3 games, and I actually kind of there was a large call that happened toward the end of SCG regionals that required the head judge's full attention, and so he was gone, and I kind of sort of pseudo head judged the top 8, which was really fun. It was a good time. I mean, obviously the head judge was there, and there were plenty of other judges for support if I needed them. But I was kind of pretty much in charge of that portion, which was a good time, and I got to watch a lot of great matches. So, Thing in the Ice, and I think it was actually Kiln Fiend, which is the buff when you play instant sorceries. They were playing against Amulet Titan, but that was not where the question arose. The question arose on a previous match. So Nora stopped the game and called the judge. This is totally fine. Again, competitive day, and even if it was a pro day, you can definitely say, hey, you know what, stop, I have to ask the judge a question. So I respond, and the player says, hey, judge, if my opponent controls Thing in the Ice, and I have a Spirit Mantle, enchanting my Slippery Boggle, what happens when it flips? So a lot of cards here. Basically, if they have a thing the opponent has an unflipped Thing in the Ice. Thing in the Ice says it has 4 ice counters on it, and whenever you cast instant or sorcery, you remove an ice counter. Once they're all removed, you flip it, and once it flips, it transforms and you return all non-horror creatures to their owner's hands. Right? Yeah. So basically, you bounce the whole board in essence, unless you have some random horror creature. So the player asks me, hey, if my opponent controls a Thing in the Ice, and I have a Spirit Mantle, which Spirit Mantle is an aura that gives a creature pro creatures, meaning that it can't be dealt damage.
Protection from creatures.
Yeah, sorry. Yep. When I say pro, I mean protection. Yeah, protection from creatures. It can't be dealt damage, enchanted, blocked, or targeted by any creatures. He says, I have a Spirit Mantle enchanting my Slippery Bogle, which is just a 1/1 creature. What happens when it flips? What happens when a Thing in the Ice flips? So I told the player, well, player, it means that when something has protection, it means it can't be dealt damage, enchanted, blocked, or targeted by. And the player said, I want to see the Oracle text for Thing in the Ice. And I said, okay, perfect. I showed the player the Oracle text for Thing in the Ice, and the player was all good to go. So all players are always entitled to ask for Oracle text. You can always ask for Oracle text. That's not a problem. It's just like you always have the right to appeal a judge call. You can always appeal, and you always have the right to get a any Oracle text. It was a really good call, and it showed me. I actually had to talk to my head judge about this one because it showed me that a player doesn't really need to have any special words. They can say, "Hey, what does this card say?" And I can say, "Yep, here's the Oracle text form." They don't have to ask. They don't have to use any verbal fencing. They can just say what they want to say, and it works out well. So
nice. I have one last judge question for you.
Sure.
And so this was at the most recent Pro Tour. In the top 8, both players are playing variations of red-white aggro.
Okay.
They're each at 7 life. This is game 3.
Mm-hmm.
All right, player A is going to attack phase, and he knows he has to be careful because he's potentially dead on the crackback.
Mm-hmm.
He's lining up his attackers, moving his opponent's cards around, like going through potential blocking scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
Player B, the non-active player, he reaches to the side. He's got 4 open mana. He grabs a vampire token and holds it because he's got a flipped Legion's Landing, which can make a vampire token.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't tap or doesn't put the token onto the battlefield. The opponent then takes the token and starts walking through the blocks as if this token exists. He decides to do an alpha strike. Attacks with everything. Player B drops the token on the side, taps his 4 mana, settle the wreckage. Now, is that a good bluff? Is that a communications issue? Misrepresenting the board?
So
he never tapped, never said he was putting this on the board.
This is amazing is what it is. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of any ambiguity when it comes to MTG, right? Like, I really try to maintain a very clear board state at all times. But this is what you call a fantastic use of resources and knowledge, because in no way is he misrepresenting his board state. Nope. He has not placed the token on the board. He's holding a token. He's in nowhere does it say that you are not allowed to hold a token. He grabbed a token and held it in his hand. He never said, I'm going to activate an ability. He never said, I'm going to put this token on the battlefield. He never said, I'm going to do anything with this token. He grabbed a token. That is not allowed. And if a player makes a decision based on the action that he just made, that's their decision. They made it, and it's really, really where it's kind of slimy a little bit. But I mean, to be fair, he never said any words.
No. The announcers, the commentators actually called it the pen trick. You know, when you reach over to grab your pen like you're going to take damage, and then you're not going to. That player was LSV, Louis Scott Vargas. He's very popular.
Typical LSV?
Yeah, I mean, he's hilarious, and he tells jokes, and he bluffs, and he lies, and he's fun, and the crowd went wild. They were like, this is the best bluff ever. This was such a good play.
I mean,
my reaction was, that was a little scummy. If that was a not LSV player, or maybe some of the villains, like Burton Cheaty, people will be like, "No, that was super slimy and sleazeball. He's a scumbag."
I think that here, like, you have to kind of see, like, well, you know, the ability on Legion's Landing was always an option, right? Yep. Like, that was a thing that he should have been considering anyways. So for LSV to grab a token, I mean, it's just kind of like I get what you're saying, that it could be a little slimy, but also for a player to make a decision, like make a concrete decision based on grabbing a token, then they really deserve to lose. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that is a very, very big decision to make based off of somebody grabbing a token. You know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, that's really interesting. I like that a lot.
It was an interesting one, and I thought it was. I didn't think there was as much interesting discussion about it as there could have been, given that LSV is so popular.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that one for sure.
Breaking news!
Don't quit your day job.
Oh, hey, that's
or night job.
All right, yeah, fair enough. We have got some breaking news about the banned and restricted list. There are no changes to any format.
Hey, that makes it pretty easy as a judge.
It really does. Like, I have nothing for me to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that means you have to learn no more tips and tricks about any new or weird cards, because you can keep your old ones. And with that, we'll go into our last segment, tips and tricks. Tips and tricks. So we have a couple cool ones for you today. I had a couple of fun ideas to talk about, and one of the first ones here is to keep your board organized. So Magic is a very confusing game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a lot of stuff that happens. Keeping things that you can control very neat to make decisions is a huge aspect. So according to the MTR, which is Magic Tournament Rules, 3.14.
Pi.
Yeah, right? In formats involving only cards from Urza's Saga and later, players may change the order of their graveyard at any time. So this means modern. This means standard. And I guess Frontier?
Yeah,
if you're
Frontier.
playing Frontier, I guess, yeah.
I guess technically the graveyard matters for Commander.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
I've never played that way because nobody's ever played any of the graveyard matters cards.
There are a very few amount of cards.
Graveyard
matters.
order matters.
Exactly. So this is important. Hey, if you want your when I play Hollow One, I rearrange my graveyard a lot.
Oh yeah, I've seen players play Dredge with everything in front of them.
Yeah, and that's we'll talk more about that later about how you can arrange your graveyard, but yeah, this is something I do, all the time. I move my flashback cards to the top. I move my recursion to the top. That way I know, hey, I got a couple Bloodghast, a couple of Flamewake Phoenixes I can bring back. I'm, good to go. No searching through my graveyard. This is fine. You can't change the order of your opponent's graveyard though. Take that into account. That's not a thing you can do. But yeah, I mean it depends on what you want to do. Layout of your board is really kind of important, and a lot of players don't. A lot of players learn how to do it one time, like they learned from their friend who did it a certain way, and that's what they keep, even though it's not very comfortable for them. There are only a few rules regarding how you have to keep your board setup. Things about, you have to have your library in a single face-down pile. Obviously, you're not going to have your library in 3 piles across your board, right?
If I'm playing unstable.
Yeah, that's true. You might. It even says the player can arrange their hand in any convenient fashion and look at it at any time. I mean, the battlefield is very, very open to interpretation. You may arrange it any order you'd like. It's really very, very open.
You just have to keep your zones clearly delineated.
Correct.
You also can't really mix. You can't hide your artifacts with your under your lands, or
right?
Stuff like
well, that gets close into misrepresenting board state. I mean, at that point, right? But yeah, I mean, Wizards kind of put out a little thing saying, "Hey, around PT Magic Origins, they said all the video feature matches have to be a certain way, a certain
which is
setup."
Hilarious because you never realized that people didn't play the same way you did.
Exactly. And so they said, hey, all the PT players have to have their creatures in front of their lands, nothing behind lands.
Not off to the side, people.
Have to be in front of lands. Graveyards have to be, or the library can be either side of the play area. The graveyard has to be adjacent to the library. The exile zone must be near the graveyard, or the library has to be distinct from the graveyard. If a card exiled by a permanent in play... Wait, what? Oh, if a card is exiled, okay, that makes sense. The card has to be placed in proximity to the exiling permanence, right?
Banisher, please.
Exactly.
The Conclave,
has to be near
one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right now.
All untapped cards must face the controller of that card. But this layout is very, very important to know. This layout is only for video recording, right? So if there's a feature match where there's video recording, they have to have it a certain way. So for me, I like to arrange my library so that it's diagonal, it's on the corner of my mat, diagonal, and then my graveyard is right next to it, and then my exile zone is perpendicular to the front of the mat, and then I have my creatures in front, my lands in back, and if I have some weird other spell that exiles a thing, let's say Seal Away or whatever, I'll put that Seal Away kind of on the side more with my artifacts and enchantments. So. My stack, I have a spot for the stack. The spot for the stack is kind of the area between the two playmats on the upper right. It's all up to you. I've like you said with Dredge, I've seen players play their Dredge their entire left side of their playmat is their Dredge graveyard. That is it.
And they'll separate, like you said, your recursion creatures and stuff.
Conflagrates and all these things separated, and then they'll have their library up in their upper right hand corner of their mat and their creatures. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, he plays a lot of Vintage. So he plays all of his lands up, all of his lands close to, on the top of his playmat, all of his creatures closest to him.
Weird.
And it feels so awkward, but he loves it. That's how he's comfortable playing. That's how he learned to play, and he just loves it.
When I first started playing out in this area, there was a bunch of people that played their lands to the side, and some of them I've trained them in the correct way. Lands in the back.
Right.
Some people still do it to the side. You guys are so weird. Just so you know, you're all weird.
But hey, it's always up to your interpretation. So, with the exception of those few rules. Tip number 2: before you make any big game decisions, get all the information you can.
Including about tokens.
Exactly. It all matters. Your hand size, your opponent's hand size, your battlefield, your graveyard, their exile. Because it allows you to be thorough, right? Like I said before, Magic is a very complicated game. So it feels like my opponent's graveyard really isn't relevant. Their size, the size of their graveyard doesn't matter. But when you get logic nodded that delve counterspell, it feels bad. Like it feels real bad to get counterspell with that. So you gotta say, hey, it all matters. How many cards you have in your hand? How many cards I have in my hand? Okay, yep, track that. Yep. It all matters, And there's the thing. It's too much information.
Yeah, you got to be careful about some of the questions you ask. There was a disqualification in a top 8 of the GP this past weekend. Wizards issued a statement. He was disqualified for misrepresenting the game state in a way that could get him an advantage. He tried to gain more information from his opponent while deciding whether or not to counter a spell. Basically, making the opponent believe the spell was going to resolve when he had more information, go back to consider his options. Nobody saw, or the social media didn't actually see what happened. I don't think this one was streamed. But the consensus is he probably played something like Ravenous Chupacabra, which says, when this enters the battlefield, destroy target creature. So that doesn't actually target till on the battlefield. So what people think happened is his opponent played Chupacabra and asked if it was going to resolve, and he asked, what's it targeting? At that point, he concedes it's on the field.
This is actually backed up by the MTR, by the Magic Tournament rules. It's a thing that happens. You can't say, whenever you ask for a target, you are conceding in essence that it has happened, it is resolved, because you're asking now for the ETB trigger to resolve.
Yep.
So it's kind of like you skip things. It's a shortcut, actually. Is what it is.
But by asking the targeting, he says it's on the field, so he can't then go back and say, "Well, I'm going to counter Chupacabra."
Not a thing.
No, that's not how that works.
Yeah. So this is kind of a big deal. I mean, I would expect this from somebody who maybe wasn't as professional or hadn't played as much, maybe at FNM, but this is a big deal. I mean, it's something that's very hard to mess up.
That was a top 8 of a Grand Prix.
Yeah, I mean
you've been playing that deck all day.
Yeah.
You should know that.
And a lot of players, I think, are up in arms about this DQ. A lot of folks generally when there's a DQ, people get angry, and it makes sense because DQs are a big deal. I mean, it's a big deal to get DQ'd, and an investigation and possible suspension. It's a big deal. However, like I said before, when you heard me hemming and hawing about giving a cheating, giving DQs is a big deal. Judges don't just give DQs. There is an investigation that happens in the moment, usually with multiple judges, head judge involved, a bunch of L2s, and at Grand Prix, a bunch of L3s, all looking into the situation and saying, well, do we really need to give a DQ here? Is this not a DQ? And this head judge, I forget his name,
Yeah.
But he is a very, very, very... All he does is judge GPs. Oh. And so he is very good at his job.
So judgy.
I mean, right? He's very good at his job. I agree with this call, and I agree with the ruling on this call because it's probably what happened. I mean, it's the way it is. The last tip we have today is there are only 2 steps a player does not receive priority in. These 2 steps, can you name them? You know what the steps are?
Untap.
And?
Draw.
Nope.
Oh.
Cleanup.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, I know. So in untap and cleanup, you do not receive priority. Otherwise, players both receive priority in every single step and phase. So,
do you want to know how I know untap does not have priority?
Because I know how do you know?
Oh, you might have been there. It was at we were playing Commander over at somebody's birthday, and somebody had Seedborn Muse on the field, which lets you untap on everybody's untap step. You get to untap all your stuff. Well, somebody had Mirage Mirror. And so he's like, on your untap step, or before your untap, I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to untap my thing. And we let it go, and then finally somebody's like, no. You can't. You don't get any priority during this phase, so that's not working. Stop it. Stop it. Bad.
No. Yeah, so that is a thing. But otherwise, there's a continuous pass and priority. So if you're going to cast, here's the tip right here. Tip approaching. If you're going to cast a spell, if you can, cast it at the latest possible time that you can. And the reason this is you want to give your opponent the least amount of information that you can for them to make a decision. So if you're casting things at the end of your turn, for example, right? Let's say you have a removal spell at the end of your turn. You cast the removal spell then, and then your opponent they can't decide at that time, well, I'm going to play another creature because it's already their end step, right? They can't decide, I'm going to do something. I'm going to cast a sorcery because it's already their end step. If you casted an instant, if you casted that spell during their main phase, they can say, yep, it resolves, and then they're going to cast whatever, another creature, they're going to cast a sorcery, they're going to cast whatever. So it's very important to give them the least amount of information. That goes with playing lands, too. Yeah. As late as you can. Late as you can in the turn, play your land in the second main phase.
Yeah, casting your creatures in the second main, playing your lands. But with lands, you got to be careful because sometimes you can get burned by like a
syncopate,
something like that.
You're right.
But so you just be aware of your situation. This also goes with abilities.
Definitely.
Anything that has an instant speed ability, like a creature's tapping ability, use as late as possible. That was something we've been working on with people out here. A mill deck that your creatures tap to mill for their toughness. You don't do it on your turn. Leave those up because then you can block with them.
Yep.
And then do it on somebody's end step.
Right. Or if worst comes to worst, you block and then activate it.
Yeah, that too.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, that's definitely a big deal. It's also very important to understand how steps and phases go because if it's possible, you want to do things. Let's say you want to do things before combat. You need to understand that in the attacking step, attacking happens first. You can't do anything. That's why it's such a big deal to say going to combat and have the person say, "Yep, we're in combat." Because that beginning of combat step, that's a step. Beginning of combat is a step.
No more sorceries.
Knowing that, okay, now, this is the last chance I'm going to get to cast a spell before attacks are declared in beginning of combat. It's a big deal because a lot of times you're going to say, like, well, I'm going to kill your creature as late as possible, but that's the beginning of combat. That's not attackers. They've already attacked at that point. So that's kind of that big deal to understand how those things go.
Well, Landon, I think that's all our super serious topics for today. We greatly appreciate everyone for listening to us. We'll be back in a couple weeks, hopefully not quite as long this time. Well, maybe. We got Christmas and my birthday.
That is true. It's your birthday coming up?
December's birthday month.
If nobody likes and shares and gets that promo, I think it'll have to just be yours. I don't know.
Sure, I'll take it.
No.
But yeah, we'll be back in a few weeks for some more Magic topics. In the meantime, please send us any questions, Facebook, Twitter, or at notsoseriousmagic@gmail.com. We're always looking for any comments, feedback, questions you want to have us discuss. Just let us know. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much.